Imagine for a moment your daughter, sister, or beloved, young, cheerful, full of dreams and hopes. She is about to become a mother, preparing the baby's room, choosing a name for the little one. Then, one evening, she goes to a meeting and never returns. Her phone doesn't answer, her things are left at home, and she is 9 months pregnant, with only days left until the birth. You start calling all your acquaintances, looking for her in hospitals, contacting the police, and then at night, you receive a strange message from her number saying she wants to have fun in another city, without her things, money, or documents, and in the last month of pregnancy. Cold horror pierces your body as you realize someone else wrote that message. Someone who took away the most precious thing from you. Someone who made it so neither your child nor her unborn baby would ever see the light of day again. Jennifer Zacconi was a 22-year-old girl, very cheerful and positive. She had lived her entire life in the small town of Martelago Venice, Italy, which had a population of about 20,000 people. As in most such provinces, there were few places for cultural recreation, so you could meet any of your acquaintances in a bar or club. In this case, such a place was located in the city center, where Jennifer lived. The girl periodically visited the club, where she often saw its owner and bartender, Lucio Niero. He almost immediately attracted Jennifer's attention with his charisma and smile. Later, the heroine of the story admitted that he did not seem particularly attractive to her, but she felt some kind of magnetism in him. Despite their large age difference of 12 years, Jennifer was only 20, and Lucio had already turned 32, they hit it off. One evening, they met, exchanged jokes, compliments, and flirted a little. It seemed they were on the same wavelength and liked each other. However, there was one problem. Lucio was married with 2 children, whom he loved very much. They talked all evening, and the man constantly complained about his wife. It seemed as if he could barely restrain his emotions while discussing his unsuccessful marriage. Lucio was extremely dissatisfied with his relationship with his spouse and even suspected her of cheating. The story sounded very plausible, and most importantly, Jennifer was imbued. Now, the naive girl was trapped, intrigued, and hooked by the pleasant communication. Perhaps she was also attracted to Lucio's wealth and maturity, seeing in him a promising partner to start a family. After their acquaintance at the bar, they went on a date. Jennifer was sure that her relationship with Lucio was developing. She believed he was really suffering in his marriage and wanted to leave his hated wife for her. This continued for about a year. Suddenly, Jennifer found out that she was pregnant. During this period, she had no relationship with anyone except Lucio, and the girl knew that this child was from her lover. During another date, she shared the happy news with Lucio, but his reaction was the complete opposite of what she expected. He literally flew into a rage and demanded an abortion. Jennifer had never seen him in such a state before, and she was seriously frightened. Lucio explained that he didn't want to have children on the side until he was divorced. This made Jennifer suspect that he had been deceiving her all along. It wasn't difficult to crack the truth. His relationship with his wife wasn't as bad as he had complained, and he was never planning to leave her. From the beginning, Lucio had seen Jennifer as a toy, a mistress, and a way to relax. It became clear that he wasn't going to meet Jennifer halfway and was planning to maintain his relationship with his wife. The girl felt deceived and betrayed. She wasn't going to have an abortion and openly told her lover this. Lucio exploded again and insisted that the child was his and that he had the right to make a decision about its birth. He demanded she get rid of the baby so he wouldn't have problems in his official marriage. Ultimately, they quarreled and broke up. Jennifer refused to give in, but despite the misunderstanding, she still retained hope. She believed that Lucio would eventually leave his wife and come to her, as she was ready to build a relationship with him. However, as time passed, it seemed that Lucio became even more irritated with the situation. He insisted on an abortion, often snapped at her, and yelled at his mistress on the phone. But Jennifer was adamant. She even began to prepare a nursery for the baby, buying things like a stroller and a crib. It was necessary to seriously change her life. Jennifer gradually bought everything necessary in the hope that she would have time for the baby's birth. The girl found out she was having a boy and decided to name him Heaven. Lucio gradually backed off and simply stopped communicating. Jennifer decided that he should be given time to think about all this. The girl was sure that he would eventually change his attitude and accept the child, despite his initial negativity. She didn't bother him, hoping that he would finally break up with his wife and that they would become a full-fledged couple. In this state, a little over 4 months passed. During this time, there were only a few short and sporadic conversations between them. According to forecasts, there were only a few days left before the baby's birth. When the man began to ask for a meeting after their ongoing communication, he invited Jennifer to a sort of date where they could discuss their relationship. Unlike the other correspondences and dialogues that had lasted for almost a year and a half, this time Lucio seemed calm and even sweet. Jennifer immediately told her mother about this and was happy, believing that the man had finally decided to choose her and the child. She assumed that during this meeting, he would share this decision with her. In the eyes of Jennifer's mother, Lucio had always appeared as a mature, experienced, and reasonable man. She understood his situation in marriage and believed that he could build a happy family with her daughter. She considered his offer of a meeting a good sign and sincerely rejoiced for her daughter. Jennifer agreed to the date, which was scheduled for the evening of April 29, 2006. Before the meeting, they spoke on the phone, and Jennifer was delighted when Lucio told her that he had changed his mind and wanted to become a part of her life and raise the baby. However, he mentioned that they still needed to discuss something. It seemed strange to Jennifer that he suggested meeting not at home or in a hotel, but for a walk in a night park located a couple of kilometers from her house. Despite the oddity of this, Jennifer didn't try to change the meeting place or convince him to meet somewhere else. She decided that she was ready to listen to her beloved's proposal in any place. Jennifer told her mother about the meeting location, and the woman reacted calmly, although Jennifer was in her 9th month of pregnancy. The girl wasn't planning to be gone for long, so she took her identity card, €1, and a small bag of sweets. Jennifer went to the parking lot where Lucio was supposed to meet her. As she approached, Lucio got out of an unfamiliar car, one she had never seen before, but she didn't attach any importance to this. The man smiled affably, and Jennifer returned his smile. He then gently suggested going for ice cream at a nearby store, which turned out to be about a kilometer away. Jennifer eagerly accepted his offer, but little did she know that she wasn't destined to reach that store. That evening, she would never return home. A few hours later, Jennifer's family was at home, and her mother was still waiting for her daughter to return. She was sure Jennifer had only stepped out for a short while. When Jennifer didn't come back by midnight, the woman began to worry. Around the same time, Lucio was heading home and called Jennifer's mother, asking if Jennifer had arrived and to have her call him. The mother replied that her daughter wasn't home and should be with him. Lucio responded with alarm, saying that they had parted ways long ago, and he claimed he had dropped Jennifer off near a 24-hour store before leaving. He told her that he couldn't help further and promised to call back later, then abruptly hung up. The frightened woman began calling all of Jennifer's friends and acquaintances, hoping her daughter was with one of them, but no one had seen her. She was about to contact the police, fearing an accident or that Jennifer might have become a victim of hooligans, when suddenly she received a message from her daughter's phone. The message asked her not to worry and mentioned that Jennifer had gone with a friend to a casino in Slovenia. The casino was in another country, about a 3-hour drive away, which struck the mother as odd. She tried to call Jennifer but couldn't reach her as the phone was turned off. The message didn't feel like something Jennifer would send, as the tone and mention of a trip to another country seemed completely out of character. The idea of Jennifer, a woman in her 9th month of pregnancy, going to a casino with just €10 in her pocket, without any belongings for herself or the baby, seemed absurd. It was clear that, under any circumstances, Jennifer wouldn't be allowed into the casino of another country with expired documents. When the mother compared all these contradictory facts, she realized with horror that something terrible had happened. She felt that Lucia, who had last seen her before her disappearance, might be involved in all of this. The woman feared abduction but didn't imagine the true scale of the tragedy. Alarmed, the mother turned to the police, describing in detail the story with all the inconsistencies from Lucio, and everything the man had told and how he behaved aroused suspicion among the police. Jennifer was declared missing, and a search was organized for her. Her family also turned to the media, hoping to attract concerned and casual witnesses to the case. No ransom messages were received, and the version of abduction began to seem dubious. The fate of the pregnant woman remained unknown for some time. The only thing the police could do at that moment was put the main suspect under surveillance. It was believed that he knew what had happened to the missing person and where to look for her. The Carabinieri repeatedly communicated with Lucio. He cooperated with the police without much enthusiasm but answered all questions. He admitted that he was worried about Jennifer and did not deny that they had a relationship. According to him, he was waiting for her return and was worried. He also allocated several hours a day to search for her and post ads. The man even offered his version to the detectives, suggesting that the story's heroine might have been kidnapped by gypsies for the sake of a child. However, all of this was groundless, like any of his other assumptions. Lucio was aware that they did not believe him. The detectives intended to dig deeper and uncover the truth, but at this stage, the man was simply released, and surveillance of the suspect continued. A week passed, and nothing of value was discovered. Suddenly, Lucio disappeared. He was actively searched for, and his behavior seemed very suspicious. Another week passed, and finally, the fugitive got in touch with his wife. By this point, he was still in a relationship with her, but she intended to divorce because of his affair. When she learned about the disappearance of her husband's mistress, the family home phone was tapped, allowing the police to track him. The man was in Milan. At that moment, the fate of the story's heroine remained a mystery, but judging by the time during which she had not shown any activity, it seemed unlikely she would be found alive. On May 7, 2006, 34-year-old Lucio was tracked down and arrested. He immediately began to deny any involvement in the girl's disappearance, insisting that he loved her and had seriously considered leaving his wife for the young mistress. However, all of this sounded unconvincing. Under pressure from the authorities, he began to change his story. Now, he admitted that his connection with the young girl was motivated only by sex, and he was not planning to divorce for her. Such changes in his views seemed very alarming. He clearly wanted to hide something but was unable to confuse the investigators. Lucio reported that the girl had never shown up for their meeting on that fateful evening, and he had not seen her. But the carabinieri repeatedly listened to his dialogue with the missing person's mother. His answer contradicted what he had told her when he called during that conversation. Lucio had claimed they met, talked, and then went their separate ways. Meanwhile, the police had already checked the girl's mobile phone data. They found that the device had last been tracked near a gas station located about a kilometer from Jennifer's house. During the inspection of the area, a rope with traces of blood was found, which looked very suspicious. It was sent to the laboratory for examination, which later confirmed the presence of Jennifer's DNA. The rope was presumably the murder weapon. However, the body could not be found. Surveillance camera footage from the gas station was requested and thoroughly analyzed. It showed compromising footage of Lucio, revealing how he attacked a defenseless girl who tried to escape but could not. Still, it remained unclear where the deceased was, and this could only be revealed after Lucio's confession. Apparently, he was never planning to organize an engagement, leave his wife, or abandon his children. All of this was used to keep his young mistress close to him for longer. At the same time, neither the missing girl's mother nor the girl herself suspected him of lying for a long time. Lucio seemed very sincere, and for almost a year and a half, he maintained a relationship with his mistress's family. Jennifer herself often visited him. He often visited the house of the story's heroine, who lived with her parents. It seemed strange that a man who was in an official marriage and had no intention of ending it would become so involved in the life of a free person that he even became part of his mistress's family. Then Lucio admitted that from the very beginning, he had not planned to have children with Jennifer. This revelation hit him hard. He feared ruining his marriage and didn't want to damage his relationship with his 2 children. The suspect confessed that he had demanded his mistress get an abortion. It seems strange that he chose to avoid breaking up with his wife, losing the opportunity to see his children grow up, and not wanting to pay alimony in such a cruel way, but instead, he committed a crime and ended up in prison, bringing all this upon himself. Lucio stated that he found himself in real confusion, feeling like a victim driven into a corner, becoming paranoid. He believed his wife was about to uncover his affair, which would destroy his well-established life and force him to start over, but only after a long and difficult divorce process. Realizing he wouldn't be able to convince Jennifer to get rid of the child, he concluded that the only way to achieve his goal was through murder. The route with secluded places and the late hour for their meeting were not chosen by chance. Lucio told his beloved that he was not actually going to resume their relationship and did not want the child to be born. He again demanded she have an abortion, offering her a chance to save her life, despite the fact that she was already 9 months pregnant. It was as if Lucio did not understand that it was physically impossible at that moment. Jennifer realized that all her hopes for a happy family life with this man had turned to ashes. She simply asked why he wanted the child to die so much, trying to understand, perhaps thinking he didn't want to pay alimony. Lucio persisted, not responding. The couple reached the gas station while actively discussing personal matters. As Lucio's car stopped in front of the station, the atmosphere inside had already heated up. They were arguing intensely, and the man began to behave more aggressively. He first switched to shouting, then began to physically assault his girlfriend. This was a real shock for Jennifer, as she had never been subjected to such violence before. She was also concerned about the health of the child since she was in her 9th month of pregnancy. With her large belly and small frame, she became clumsy and had difficulty moving quickly. Nevertheless, she managed to break out of the car and tried to run toward her house, though it was far away. Unfortunately, Jennifer couldn't move fast enough due to her condition and even fell several times. Lucio got out of the car after her and quickly followed his fleeing mistress. She attempted to hide behind the gas station where there were dense bushes, but she didn't make it in time. Lucio caught up to her, throwing her onto the asphalt. She fell to the ground, and the man immediately ran up, striking her several times in the head and face. He then kicked her in the stomach, likely with great force, causing the victim to crouch on the asphalt. But the attacker didn't stop there. Lucio began to strangle his victim with a rope, continuing for a long time until the rope broke. Realizing he could not finish the act that way, he noticed a large hole at the side of a gas station. He dragged the victim to the hole, positioned her face down, and jumped on her. He then got a shovel from the car and started throwing dirt, burying the pregnant girl. Afterward, he got into the car and left. Lucio admitted that he called the murdered woman's mother and lied, claiming they had already parted ways. For added credibility, he even sent messages from the woman's phone to her mother, making it seem as though everything was fine. The mother, however, grew suspicious and went to the police. Lucio later agreed to show them where he had hidden the body. Together with the police, he returned to the gas station and pointed to a discreet spot behind the bushes where he had buried the victim. The body of 22-year-old Jennifer, along with her unborn child, was exhumed and sent for examination. The forensic expert's conclusion was horrifying. Jennifer's death had not been caused by blunt force trauma, but by suffocation. When Lucio buried her, she was unconscious but still alive. The dirt clogged her mouth and airways, causing her death, while the child also died from oxygen deprivation. Strangulation marks from the broken rope were found on her neck. Lucio insisted that he was in an insane state at the time of the crime and did not fully understand his actions. A psychiatric examination later showed that he was sane, but he continued to claim he acted in a state of passion to obtain a milder sentence. The investigators, however, did not believe his defense, as they had already heard too many versions of the story from him. Lucio's cruelty escalated to the point where he jumped on Jennifer's back, breaking her spine and tearing out her hair while she was already in the pit. According to the forensic expert, Jennifer and her baby could have survived if they had received emergency assistance. The motives behind Lucio's attack remained unclear, as he had pursued Jennifer with great enthusiasm for over a year before turning on her. He was not stupid and must have known that murder would only create more problems, yet he continued with his plan. Lucio believed that the police would never solve the crime and that he could escape punishment despite all evidence pointing to him. Jennifer's family was devastated by the events. They had hoped and believed until the very end that she would return home safely. They were also angered by the media's lack of coverage of the murder and the unborn child's death. The family feared that Lucio would only be convicted for the murder of Jennifer and not for the death of the unborn child, even though that should have been considered a separate crime. In an attempt to bring attention to the issue, they published photos of the baby in funeral clothes in the local newspaper. Although the images sparked public outrage, the family insisted they had no other choice. Forensic examinations had shown that the baby could have survived if delivered, but Lucio was only charged with illegal abortion, not murder. The court also ordered Lucio to pay 80,000 euros in compensation to the victim's family, but before the trial was over, he declared himself bankrupt on the advice of his lawyer. Jennifer's family never received a cent, and in 2017, the Court of Appeal in Rome ruled that they were not entitled to any payments. This decision sparked even more anger toward the justice system, but it did little to change the outcome. In accordance with Italian law, after serving 10 years in prison, a prisoner may be allowed to work outside during the day and spend 45 days a year at home. This happened to Lucio in 2017 after he had served 11 years of his sentence. The victim's family was outraged, especially seeing that Lucio had behaved impeccably in prison and passed a psychiatric examination confirming that he was fit for release. The fact that Lucio had once tried to claim insanity only made the family's grief even worse. His release seemed incomprehensible, especially since he had tortured their daughter and buried her alive. The justice system's leniency towards him caused public outrage. Jennifer's parents repeatedly expressed their belief that Lucio had no right to walk free, but their words fell on deaf ears. This case serves as a painful reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people hide behind the mask of ordinary individuals, presenting themselves as charming, successful, and caring, while secretly harboring darkness. Lucio, a businessman and father, was a cruel killer with no remorse for his actions. This story reminds us to be vigilant, to trust our instincts, and to protect ourselves and our loved ones. If you were moved by this story, subscribe to Detective Brooks Stories for more criminal cases that shed light on the darkest sides of human nature. Click the bell to stay updated on new episodes and share your thoughts on this case in the comments. Was the sentence fair? Did Lucio deserve a harsher punishment? See you next time in the world of the most mysterious criminal stories.